Hey folks, Malforian here. Welcome back to another Grey Eminence Dev Diary. This week it is Dev Diary 10 Elites and some more fantastic artwork. The artwork in all of these has been amazing, so it gives me a lot of belief in the art in the game itself. It's going to be pretty nice, especially the loading screens and stuff like that. Like I said, it's like art style. It's like painted, but I guess it's like digitally painted. Looks really, really cool. So we got another nice one. Looks like a Beethoven type person. And obviously Noble's trying to look around and see what he's up to. And yeah, we're just going to get straight into it. It's not the longest Dev Diary this week, so we're just going to go through what elites do, what effect they have on your country, and the different kinds of elites there are. If you enjoyed today's video, if you give it a like, it would help me immensely with other people trying to find these kind of videos in the future. And if you're new to the channel, this is your first video, I cover the Dev Diaries for Grey Eminence, and I also play a lot of Crusader Kings and Grand Strategy games on the channel, so if that's your kind of thing, you know what to do. But yeah, we're just going to get into it. So today we're going to talk about elites, the power holders of society. Every country contains multiple elites, groups of characters with common socio-economic roles. While characters have their own individual personalities and goals, their collective behavior exert a strong influence on the country's stability and power. Loyal elites can be leveraged to assist your plans, whilst disloyal elites become dangerous saboteurs. I think like most Grand Strategy games, it looks like they're just going to be like the second layer of your country. Obviously, you the player, is the ruler. The country itself is almost like a character on its own in a way. And then elites are like that first tier of additional gameplay for your realm. So elites, let's start by defining how an elite is structured. An elite's existence, rights, and obligations are defined by their country's laws, which I think we did see in one of the other Dev Diaries. You could obviously change the laws to allow certain things for your elites to do. These laws apply only to tiles that the country owns directly, so the tiles of subject countries may have other elites, so their laws differ from those of their overlord. So if you have a vassal or a protectorate or something like that, they obviously have they can have different laws to what you have. I wonder how you can change that, because we'll go into later on how the different kinds of elites, they can have military elites. I wonder if you had a vassal or like a protectorate kind of realm that was part of your realm technically. If they're very military focused, I wonder if that helps. Like you could vassalize a very military focused country, and then obviously their army would be potentially better than yours, and you could use them to do wars and then focus on, you know, building up an economy maybe on your in your realm itself. So it'd be interesting to see whether that is how it works. It sounds like it might do. But we'll obviously see when the game comes out, or when they cover some more of these in later Dev Diaries. As long as the country's laws dictate that a given elite should exist, a fixed number of elite positions are created in every province in that county. At the start of the game, these positions are all occupied by existing characters, as many as we've been able to historically verify, with the rest being procedurally generated. So yeah, the first year the game starts, they're going to have as many real characters from that time frame, and then obviously as the game progresses it'll be different people. I wonder if later on they will have some, so if you get into like, I don't know, 1800s, will you get well-known characters from that era appearing in these positions? It doesn't actually say that in the Dev Diary, but with them doing them with at the start of the game, I wonder if there will be those odd, like, famous people that arrive later in the game and take up those positions as well, or whether they're a different kind of population. Like I say, we'll see in the future Dev Diaries. These positions come with ownership of specific buildings, and thus usually carry significant incomes and have specific rules for succession, which are usually determined by country laws. And then we're going to give an example here, which kind of explains how this all works. To give you an example, in the province of Brittany, in the northwest of the kind of France, there might be 4 elite positions for nobles. Effectively, this means we can model 4 of the most powerful noble characters and their families. These characters don't own the buildings directly. The ownership is tied to the position itself, so holdings don't get diluted or lost upon succession, which is quite different to, I think, how most games will handle this. Usually, if you play like Crusader Kings, you have a barony, and then that person generally has a family, and then they pass the barony down to their child, and kind of further and further down. I know this is a little bit different, but it does sound kind of the same. Instead of having like 4 baronies in a county, you basically have 4 positions, and they're basically showing you the 4 most powerful families in that county. There probably are other mechanics, I would imagine, where nobles can try to take power, but they can't do it directly through just gobbling up all the buildings themselves. So a little bit different there. Like I said, it'd be interesting to see how that actually plays out once we get a hand on the game itself. Crucially, the same character can fill multiple positions in different elites, which they are going to cover later. So, for example, a particularly successful merchant might petition you for a noble title. Granting it would win you a powerful ally, it would also anger those who believe nobility is a birthright. So, playing those kind of politics between the different ones, trying to keep someone on your side, maybe who's very powerful. Maybe the merchant has a lot of money and he's helping you that way, and you want to give him that power, but it might upset everyone else and shenanigans might ensue. Elite characters can use the resource of their position to further their own goals, securing more favorable rights, lowering their obligations, expanding their existing holdings, or even attempting to carve out their own vassal country out of the province they reside in. Elites can also be interacted with by hostile powers. For example, another country can attempt to contact them via espionage to bribe them over an upcoming conflict. Oh, that is interesting. So yeah, it does look like they can actually expand. We did see that before in the buildings dev diary. They did say noble characters can use their money to build buildings. If you don't build them, they'll just gradually build buildings, build up more money and things like that. And this does say, though, they can attempt to carve out their own vassal country out of the province they reside in. I wonder if they will come to you and say, like, you're like the Emperor of France, and one of these people in Brittany gets lots of money, gets lots of power somehow. I wonder if he comes to you and says, like, look, you're running Brittany, but maybe I can run it a little bit better. I'll stay your vassal, or I'll become your vassal, but I want to run it as my own country, and I'll just give you, obviously, like, vassal things, like troops and gold and all that stuff, and an alliance, probably. I wonder if that's how that's going to work. Because it'd be pretty cool if that happens. You don't really see that in anything else. Like, if you play Crusader Kings, I always come to Paradox games because it is probably the easiest way if you've played Paradox games to kind of visualize what they're talking about, because they haven't really shown off that many like in-game screenshots of exactly how it looks. So I imagine it'd be pretty cool if you had somebody who would come to you. You know, you're the Emperor of France, and they came to you and said, like, I want to take over Brittany. It would become technically another country, but I'll be your vassal. That would be a pretty cool interaction, and seeing how that plays out. And then obviously it does say other realms can contact them and bribe them. So maybe you're going to go to war against Germany, and Germany's bribed a bunch of your powerful elites. And when you declare that war, they all turn around and go, no thanks. We're gonna help Germany, or we're gonna stay neutral, and good luck. Good luck in that war. We ain't gonna help you. So you could have like less troops than you thought you were gonna have, or a bunch of money shortages and things like that. So that sounds all good. So let's do an overview of all the elites that exist in Grey Eminence: nobility, the merchants, the clergy, the tribes, the bureaucracy, and the military. So they're the 6 different kinds of elites that you can have. And the nobility are hereditary landholders of the realm. In 1356, they are the most powerful elite in most countries by a wide margin. Nobles tend to invest in rural buildings, owe feudal dues, and can raise levies, which obviously will get given to the king or whatever, whoever you're playing. They'll obviously be called upon to fight wars and things like that. And you can have those contracts and all that kind of stuff to decide how much they owe you for probably some opinion modifier or something like that. Merchants are the engine of urban life, responsible for handling trade. They tend to invest in urban buildings, pay taxes and tariffs, and can muster a militia, which again can be made disposable to the state. So that's obviously more the money side of things, where you're going to get your money. Sounds like they're more likely to invest in factories and obviously trade related things rather than nobility. That's probably more farming and just fancy buildings. I don't know. They're probably things that aren't going to help you with obviously the money side of things more than merchants will. The clergy are responsible for the country's primary religion. Depending on the country's investiture law, clergy position can be assigned by the head of faith, the state, or independently by local elite populations. The clergy too can be assessed taxes and can maintain militant clerical orders. So the religion was covered, I think, in Dev Diary 3 or 4. Can't remember off the top of my head. And yeah, they are having different investiture laws. So you can let the Pope pick who's going to be a bishop, or you can choose yourself, and obviously the outcome of the fallout of that decision. But and then also the clergy give you a lot of money. They obviously keep a lot of money for themselves, but they are going to give you some money. But they can have clerical, military clerical orders, so holy orders basically, and you can obviously make use of those if you're fighting against other religions. Tribes represent those social groups bound by kinship. They can be given varying degrees of autonomy, be made to pay tribute, or participate in military campaigns. So I don't know how this one works. Tribes? I thought it was going to be talking about like tribal nations, but it sounds more like maybe, for an example, if you're England, you take over Scotland, and then obviously famously all the different tribes in Scotland. I wonder if it's more talking about that. You could maybe give them money to get them to come help you in a campaign, or basically just force them to come in on a campaign on you. Maybe they're really good soldiers, but they're not good at making money and things like that. So, and it does say varying degrees of autonomy. So maybe you could say, look, you can just do whatever you want, guys, but I'm going to call on you to come into these wars, and you have to do that. Or you can be very strict and really nail down and try, I guess, kind of forming them into a proper army. So again, not much information here, but I imagine a future dev diary will probably cover exactly how they work. Bureaucracy represents the state. For most countries in 1356, the bureaucrats are synonymous with one of the other elites. In other words, the bureaucracy starts as an elite beholden to others. The country's methods of recruitment can be reformed to create an independent bureaucracy, though that is far from easy. The bureaucrats can be paid varying wages, which significantly impacts their loyalty and propensity for corruption, and can be forced to extract taxes in different ways. So that's just, how your state operates and things like that. And obviously in 1356, I think a lot of countries wouldn't have a bureaucracy how we think about it today. Time the game runs for, obviously by the end of the game, you're probably seeing those more formal, large bureaucracies that are basically running the country and collecting all the taxes and, organizing everything, or they're just super corrupt and they're just taking all the money. Either way, I guess, will play out by the looks of it in the game. The military elite are composed of top generals and admirals of the country's army and navy. The military usually starts off as an elite captured by another, most commonly the nobles, but it too can be reformed into independent elite with its own goals and priorities. These are various laws which configure the composition of the military elite, but we'll explore those in a future dev diary on war. Oh, that'd be nice then, an actual war dev diary. Like I said last time, they haven't actually covered how war is going to exactly work in the game, so that is going to be an interesting one to read when it does come out. But yeah, so it sounds like at the beginning, similar to the last one, a lot of the time in 1300s, 1500s, it was generally the nobles who kind of ran the armies. But then obviously as countries progressed through the eras, they started having like military like wings basically of the government. So it looks like you can either do that or you can just stay the other way and see how that plays out. Yeah, you do get that independent elite rather than like a noble having both positions. The military elite will split out and be a separate one after a certain amount of time, or after you change the law, I would imagine. Each elite character can be interacted with individually, for example, to raise a particular noble's levies or to extract a greater tax from a particular merchant or en masse, and will gain or lose favors accordingly. Favors are a decaying currency which can be spent to enforce a certain action or to extract a certain concession from an elite character. They can be accumulated by either side, and elites will push wherever they feel an advantage they are owed mercilessly within the confines of their own personality, of course. So yeah, they're probably seeing if you have a little money issue, maybe the merchants will come to you and say, hey, here's a load of money, but in the future we ain't giving you no troops, or we'll give you a bunch of money now, but in the future we're going to give you less money. But that's probably how it's going to play out. But then it does say the personality will take effect. So, if they're a very generous merchant, maybe they'll just be like, hey, I'll help you out, the king, and I'm not going to ask for much back in return. But if they're very greedy or ambitious, they're really going to hammer you down for some return on their investment. So it kind of plays out like most grand strategy games by the looks of it. Favors have an important impact on character attitudes, which in turn significantly impact character behavior. A character is owed favors will increasingly turn hostile if they're denied the opportunity to use those favors. In other words, leveraging elites by promising them future benefits would be a huge short-term gain, but it will be bad in the long run. So you can't just promise them loads of stuff, get loads of money off them, and then when they come knocking for the return, you go, I'm busy at the moment, sorry, I can't give you it. Hostile elites can become a nuisance in two major ways. First, they can form factions with various demands, from simple requests like lower taxes to major revamps of the country's laws and structures. Factions are a pretty big topic. They're precursors to rebellions and revolutions, and we'll cover them in a separate dev diary. So yeah, they can have factions, and they can revamp the laws of the country. I wonder if they will play out like, that full absolute monarchy, and then they come to you and say, look, we've had enough of this. let's do a constitutional monarchy or something like that. I imagine that's how it plays out during the time span of the game. Another way in which elite characters can hinder your plans is by directly collaborating with your enemies, which they said earlier. Foreign countries can infiltrate your realm through the espionage system, which they will cover in another dev diary, which they mentioned before, which allows them to collaborate with your elites. And in cases where a certain elite character feels so scornfully insulted, they can reach out to your enemies on their own. Oh, so it works both ways. So if you have a powerful elite who you've annoyed, he can actually reach out to a neighboring country and say, like, do you want to come over and help me kick out the king or something like that? Traitorous elites are a very real danger in most countries, especially with those devolved militaries that are run by the very same elites. In other words, ensuring elite loyalty is a key contributor to long-term success. So yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, a lot of places, the nobles also run the military. So if you upset the nobles, they control the military, whereas later on, they've obviously diluted a little bit. You'll have the nobles and then the military. Then obviously you've got to keep the military on your side because then that's all they do. Here's the nice UI. The elites are a different power holders in your country. And then the nobility, it looks like these are the top 5. Then there's 19 more. I guess these are opinion modifiers. I guess these hearts are their health. We can see some more of the portraits here. Like I've mentioned in previous ones, I'm okay with these portraits. I don't know. I guess we'll see how many more there are or whether they change. It'd be cool if early game they're like paintings like this, and then as you progress through they become like black and white photos and then color photos. That would be awesome actually if it changed like that. I imagine these are the tiers of laws, maybe this is administration, tax, and soldiers. Potentially, I'm not sure. They haven't covered this yet. I'm sure they will in future dev diaries. Because then here the merchants, I guess. Again, this looks like maybe tax or something, and maybe a split of their building profits or something. But yeah, we're just taking a guess. So we'll quickly move on. Clergy, again, buildings. Look, maybe these are the holy orders. This is maybe the tax ascending to the Pope, and then these are the top 5 and how much they like you. And then the bureaucracy. Again, these are some kind of laws probably affecting them. And then these are the top 5, and they seem to like this guy most out of everyone. Yes, they do. So the bureaucracy on his side. An early look at the UI for elites. It conveniently lets you observe the strongest characters in each elite. So yeah, he's always the top 5, and then you can see the next 7 for the bureaucracy, for example, with the possibility of expanding the panel to show all members of an elite, and has shortcut buttons for the relevant laws for that elite. So yeah, these are the laws then, and then you can click here to see everyone that is in the bureaucracy, but it will always show you the top 5 most powerful of each type. And then there we go. That's it. We're on to modability, just saying how you can change how elites work. As always, if you're into modding, if you're looking at the game, potentially wanting to mod for it, they are building every system to be insanely moddable, and they have a great section in their subreddit and Discord if you want to get a bit more information on there. But that is going to be it for today. The next dev diary is in 2 weeks as always, on June the 18th. They haven't said what it's going to be, but we're getting to that little bit now. We've had 10 dev diaries, so we're probably going to start seeing, I guess, a little bit more detail on each area, because I think they've covered the main areas. They've covered religion, countries, nobles, and all that kind of stuff. They did mention war a couple of times. That's the one I'm kind of looking forward to, because it'll be a big factor as to how I think the game is going to play out, depending on how they're going to do those wars. Are they going to do it Crusader King style, build up armies and then manually move them, or are they going to do maybe a Victoria 3 style or Hoi 4, where you kind of build fronts and then the game plays them out for the most part. So yeah, that'll be the most interesting one coming along, I think, that I can't wait for. But let me know what you think. Like I say, we've had 10 dev diaries now. What do you think of the game? Are you excited for it still? Are you still intrigued as to how else the game is going to differ from most other things? And yeah, the other thing I'm hoping for is just maybe a dev diary with a lot more screenshots, I guess. Like, there are quite a few. If you go on the Steam page, if you go on their website, they have quite a few as well. But I'd like to see almost like a year in the life of the game or something, where you can kind of roughly visualize how the game is going to kind of play out. I know it's very early in development, so I'm not going to hold them to it, but it'd be cool to kind of see that kind of outlook of what the game's looking like. But anyway, we're going to leave it there for today. So if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. If you are here for the first time, this is your first video. Like I said at the beginning, I cover all the dev diaries for Grey Eminence and for Crusader Kings. I also play Crusader Kings 3 story campaigns on the channel and play other grand strategy and normal strategy games. So if that's your kind of thing, you know what to do on YouTube. But we're going to leave it there, and I'll see you in the next one.